Share my screen. Share the element. Selection. All right, you should be able to see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. You let me know when you're set up and ready to record and all of that stuff, and then we'll go from. I think I start recording from here. Quality seems good. Right. But I'm not record button. I don't think I can record, so you may have to.
Do you want me to record your stream? Or am I recording mine?
You do. Okay. Some command center, so we'll be good there. Hot Fry, you all set up?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Can you guys hear
Are
me?
you, yeah, are you gonna be doing the recording?
Yeah, because I'm currently streaming, so I'll just record the VOD and everything like that, and I'll edit it and
Okay,
all that good shit.
perfect. Okay, so we will get going. All right, so we're gonna start with those of you that aren't in it. I have the Gooniversity PI channel set up here. This is just a bunch of links, bunch of fittings, tools, skill plan, all kinds of reading and everything else. Good references to have, uh, especially getting into the factory planet setups, the templates, and all of that, because that's going to make your life a lot easier if you can just copy and paste those. We're going to go ahead and start with just the absolute basics, which is uh, finding a planet, setting up on the planet, getting, going through the skills and stuff like that. So let me undock here and just kind of sit here. So anytime, well, let's look at the skill. So on the skills, planet management, you can get away with interplanetary consolidation. You definitely want to get that to 5 because that gives you all of your planets. This particular character still has to get 5 so that he gets his 6th planet. Command center upgrades, 4 is usually a good place. If you're going to be pushing everything to the max, then you're definitely going to want 5. Remote sensing will tell you how far out you can see planet scans. And then the planetology skills are basically going to be for how effective those scans are. So to dig into that a little bit, we're going to start with, where to go when you want to find a planet to work on. We're going to go into the agency tab, and on the agency tab, we're going to go to resource harvesting, planets, and planetary industry, and that's going to show you all of the planets and the ranges. Then it's also going to give you all of the planets for each system. So when you start to look at this, the resources that are available on that planet, being able to see those is dependent on what your remote sensing skill is at. So if you don't have any remote sensing skill, you're probably only going to be able to see what's in system with you. If you have your remote sensing pushed up to 3, 4, 5, whatever, you're going to be able to see further and further out. And you're going to be able to see what the makeup is on each planet. You're always going to want to go for the highest range in that area. But just because it's a high range doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy to get to. In this case, I've already got extractors on the storm planet and on the lava planet. So I've got some barrens and I've got a temperate, so we're going to put some stuff down on. So I'm going to look at the temperate here. A temperate will give us autotropes, carbon compounds. I'm still trying to decide, what I want to put in on this. Let's take a see what else we. Yeah, they're pretty much all the same. Let's just go back to temperate. Autotropes are always a. So what we're going to do when we go to look at this is we're going to click in and take a look at this planet. Actually, let's back out and let's look at something here real fast. On each of these planets, one of the things that you want to pay attention to when you're laying down anything on the planet is you're going to want to right click and go to show info. And under the attributes for that planet, one of the biggest things you want to look at is the radius. This is really going to come into play when you get into laying down factories. When you go to lay down a factory, you notice that we always do factories on barren planets. So if you look at the first barren planet in the system, which is usually a 1% tax for Goonswarm, we're going to go show info, and you can see right here, 2,580 kilometers versus the other one, the one we just looked at, which was 6,800 kilometers. Where that's going to come into play is when you start laying down your factories and the linkages to all of them, because the longer that link, the more power and CPU it takes up. So you're not going to lay a factory down on a gas planet because we have one here. Because a gas planet, that might say 13,000 kilometers, which even though the factories look like they're sitting right next to each other, on a small barren planet, it might be a 50-kilometer link, but on the gas planet, it might be a 300-kilometer. And that adds up really, really fast. So always pay attention to your radius, especially when you're looking at factories. In this case, we're only going to be doing, or we're going to be doing a extraction planet, so we'll set up for autotropes. We're going to dump right in, and first thing, make sure you've got your command center, and you can throw your command center anywhere. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't have to be connected to everything else. We're going to pull this all the way open, and we were going to look at autotropes, or there we go, autotropes. So you can see the layout and what that scan looks like. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this all the way down, and now we start to see the red, we see the white. I'm going to pull this all the way to the left to basically see all of the planet is now white. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab in the center of that and now slide the entire bar to the right. This is one of the things that I
You're like, what the fuck?
Class. So now what we're doing is we're just kind of narrowing down where all of the good spots are. And once you've identified, okay, here's a really good spot where we've got room all the way around where we're getting material. But before I lay anything down, I want to right click and show other characters networks. When you do that, what you're going to see, you can see right there are two command centers. So somebody else already has something on this planet. So I can click on here and I can see what their layout is. So they have, what have we got here? We've got This is a temperate planet, so we've got a launch pad, storage facility, and we have factories. So this is probably a factory planet for them, a simple factory. And click onto the other one. Oh no, you can see here, this goes all the way over. They've got extractors here. Whoever did this has got some massive, yeah, they've got an extractor all the way over here. So these guys, whoever this is losing a lot by having this come all the way over. That is not great. And I can actually click into that. If I go back to it, click on it, should be able to right click and show info, and I can see who owns it. If I click on this one, is that a command center? Yeah, that's probably a factory. And that belongs to
Damn,
the
that
same
one's got a
person.
lot of shit, don't it?
Oh, nope. Tony Alice, and then Alice Thompson, I think that was. So maybe I don't want to put anything. I want to move up here. Here's two more. There's actually a bunch on this planet. Out of this planet used. You can see all those little freckles on there that show you where somebody's got something set up. There's a spot we can use. Yeah. We got. Nope, nothing there. Where's this one? They're down here. All right, so we're going to set up right in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap in. I'm going to drop my command center. And before I submit, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my upgrade. My upgrade, I only have 4 on this one. So I'm going to set my upgrade, submit, and now my upgrade's in place. Always remember to do your upgrade on your command center, because if you don't, you're going to start putting stuff in and you're going to forget what you're doing, and suddenly nothing's going to fit right. Personally, my way of setting up a factory or a extractor system is I like to have a launch pad, then a storage facility. I'll throw in another launch pad, and I could have a template for this, but the problem with templates is if you don't have the same control center level as the person that put it in, it might give you problems. Then we're going to put in an extractor. I'm going to create a link to all of these. You don't have to link the command center itself. Go, and I'm going to set this for, I'm kind of doing things in different orders here. Let's go in. Oh, yeah, you got to build it first. So build it. Now we can set our extractors up. I like to set the extractors up and running before I put my factories in. We want autotropes. Now, your time period for when you're going to be harvesting, or when your extraction cycles. I personally like to do 2 days, 1 hour, and 30 minutes. Well, the reason for that is because that means my extractor cycles are running once every 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes, I'm dumping material from my extractors into my storage facility. My factories, once I put them in, they're going to run once every hour. So this allows my extractors to get a little bit ahead of my factory. So I always do that. A lot of people are used to just hitting the button and dropping these in and then moving them around. But what you can do is you press Control, and then you can just start laying them down and pick your spots where you want them to go. This was another thing that I learned last time around, because I was just clicking in and then dragging them around. This way makes it really nice. The only thing about it is that you have to kind of click out and click back before it'll allow you to start. So we're going to press start. I'm going to go in and I'm going to set my routing. I got to tell them to go somewhere, so I'm going to double click, and I'm going to tell it to go to the storage facility. And just double click there. You'll notice that turned yellow, and we're going to submit. So at this point, I have my extractor going straight into my storage facility, and then from the storage facility, we're going to be able to farm that out to the individual factories once we get them in there. Notice here that you see the 39%, 39.4%. That is how much usage that particular link is getting. So if we click in, you might reach a point where you've got so much material or so much traffic going through one link that it tells you that you need to upgrade a link. And what you can do is you can click on one of these and click on links, and you can see the destination of the two links. One goes to the storage facility, one goes to the extractor. So if I click on that, double click, that brings up that particular link. And if I need to, I can go in and upgrade the link, which will allow more traffic on that link. That's going to increase the power and CPU usage of that link, but depending on your factory setup, you may have to do that. I've had to do it a few times. So now we're going to go in and we're going to put in all of our factories. And since we're just doing an extraction planet, I'm just going to drop in my preferred 8 factories. And the reason I do this is because the 4 factories on the bottom will feed the bottom launch pad, and the 4 factories on top will feed the top launch pad. And if I'm doing 2-day, 1 hour, and 30-minute cycles, that allows me to go in every couple of days and reset my extractors, move them around as needed. But this will allow me to set it up so that I only have to harvest once every 2 weeks. And if you do this a couple of times, go through a couple of harvest cycles and store up that stockpile of P1 materials before putting it into a factory, then you're going to find you've got yourself a nice little buffer built up where you can get your P2, P3, and P4 factories running nice and consistent. It's always good to build that stockpile. So we've got the factories built, we've got the linkages built for all of them. Now I just need to go in and tell it what to make. So we have autotropes. Autotropes make industrial fibers. So we're going to go in here and select double click industrial fibers. And I want that output to go to this upper launch pad. And I'm going to do this for each one of these. The top 4 are all going to go to the upper factory or the upper launch pad. And what I'm doing here is I'm just doing the routing, the output routing. Notice it all says input routes missing. We're gonna fix that here in just a second. So bottom 4, we're gonna say go to the bottom. And this particular setup has served me quite well. I did have a problem when we first moved into this area that the POCOs and the Skyhooks weren't set up yet, and I changed one factory on the upper and lower sections into storage facilities so that I could store things until they got them in there. But this works out really well. All right, so we have the outputs from all of the factories set. So now what we're going to do is we need to provide the input routes. Provide the input routes. You haven't received any material from your extractor yet. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go into our storage facility and we're going to look at the routes for the storage facility. So you can see here that it is showing we're going to have roughly 49,000 autotropes come in. I can click on that and create route, select, and create route. And you can see that just went yellow, so that completed that routing for that factory. It now has its inputs, its outputs, it's ready to go once things start landing. The difference between setting up your factory to output and setting up the routing for the inputs is that when you're setting up this routing, you have to click create route, select it, and then hit create route again. Where the other The other, you were able to just, see, if you click out of it, you mess it up. You got to go in from the storage facility into routes. You can't double click at this point because it's going to mess things up, and then you're going to have to deal with it. You might go to save all your setup and it says that there's a problem. If you don't know where that problem is, you could find yourself digging to get it back. So let's see here. So we're gonna go through all of these. We're gonna create route, and we are just going to do this for all of them. And like I said, this particular setup is going to run for about 2 weeks before I need to offload material off.
That's a long time.
And
That's awesome.
And save. That should be about
Especially for people who like can't like fuck with it all the time.
But there. So that's my setup. That's the setup that I'll use for just a basic
That's like super awesome.
planet. I'm running with that planet. It makes it 69 planets total, but some of those are factories. Now, the nice thing about this particular setup is, right, remember I did right click and show other characters' networks. The closest network is over here, and then there's another one over here to the side. So if I go back over and look, this guy, his extractor's all the way out here. So I don't necessarily need to worry about that. But if he moves that extractor over to this side, we might be competing for resources, which is why another reason I keep mine at 2 days, 1 hour, and 30 minutes, because it gives me more opportunities to go in and look and make sure that I'm not losing material or anything like that to somebody competing for the resource. Questions at this point? Bueller?
No questions so far, thank you. You've already given me extra information.
So I have a quick question. So other people have said that 3 days and 1 hour is the optimal time to extract, so you don't have to move your extractors around.
Yep.
So I mean,
yeah, and there's no wrong answer, because at the end of the day, the extractor duration is entirely dependent on your gameplay. I like the 2 days, 1 hour, and 30 minutes, because if I go over that, it turns into a 1 hour extraction cycle. When you get a little further up, it turns into an hour and a half or a 2 hour extraction. If you get up into the 7 day range, I want to say it's a 3 hour extraction cycle. So it really depends on what your gameplay looks like. I personally like to keep close eye on my stuff, so a 30-minute cycle on my, or a 2 days, 1 hour, and 30 minutes on my extractors means my extractors are cycling and outputting every 30 minutes to the storage facility. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do 3 days, I think 3 days will put you at a 1 hour cycle. I just do it to create a little more buffer ahead of time for the factories, because the factories run an hour. But there's no wrong answer. Again, it's what works for you.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, totally. Let's see here. What else have we got? If we go in and look at our command center, so you can see with this command center setup, so at upgrade level 4, this particular setup, you can see that I'm at 99.7% power, but only 53% CPU. If I was going into factory mode and building more factories, advanced and high-tech factories, those would swap. I'd be using less power, but I'd be using more CPU. Anytime you've got a problem and you're trying to figure it out, you may need to go in and look at the routes. So you can always go in here, you can look and see what's incoming, what's outgoing. This is a good way to troubleshoot. Sometimes you'll see that your factories or your launch pads are filling at different rates. That could be because you might have had 5 factories outputting to the bottom one and 3 to the top. When you go to move stuff around, if you click in here and go to your storage for that launch pad and want to move, anything. If you want to move anything from a storage facility to a launch pad to your command center or wherever, you can use the expedited transfer. Let's back out to another that I already have going. And we're going to look at this one here. Let's look at that. So you can see here that I have material already on the launch pad. In the launch pad, I've got 3,500 toxic metals, roughly on both of them. And then in the storage facility, you can see that there is 292,000 of the raw resource. So this is what's going to be shared out to all of the factories. If for some reason I want to move something around, I can click into the storage and I can click expedited transfer. When you click the expedited transfer, it's going to ask, where do you want it to go? So select wherever you want it to go. And you'll do this a lot to level out what's in each location, or maybe you're just transferring stuff around. You put it down on the wrong launch pad or something like that. This cooldown time is what you want to pay very close attention to, because if you do something wrong, you could be locked out for a while. If I wanted to move 292,000 heavy metals up to that launch pad, suddenly that cooldown time becomes 1 hour and 10 minutes. This is really going to come into play when you are setting up factories, because what you're going to do is you're going to do this in tandem. You're going to have a launch pad and a storage facility. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to load half the materials for that factory onto the launch pad, then expedited transfer it over to your storage facility. Well, 50,000 units of anything that you move from point A to point B is going to lock up that transfer window for the next 8 hours. So you want to make sure you get it right. Otherwise, you're going to delay everything and basically until the next day.
Get it right.
So go ahead and cancel out of that because I don't need to move anything. This planet, you can see here again, 99.7 at 53%. So I'm running at the limit of what I can do on a Command Center 4 setup, but I've got everything in a nice position and I've got everything pulling well. It's just going to take time. So what we will do, I want to see if this will switch with, let me see if I can switch windows. Did that switch over to show my, nope, it didn't. We're going to change windows here. Change windows. Stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to change windows over to this one. There we go. All right, so we're going to change over. This is my factory guy. That is, he's running all P2s. So every planet's making 4 P2s. So every one of them's getting touched at some point. It's a rather convoluted system, but the way this is set up, we look at this. Command Center 5, you can see that I'm running 90% power and 98% on CPU. So I'm pretty maxed out on what I can do here. But the way this works is at the very beginning, I will drop my material onto the first launch pad, and then I will transfer it over to the storage facility. Then I'll drop the second one onto the launch pad, and then the factories take off. In this case, this particular factory is making super tensile plastic. I have it set so that this particular factory, test cultures, super tensile plastics, viral agent, and nanites, these are the 4 PI components needed for making auto integrity backup seals and life support backup units. So if you're making, building ships and stuff like that, those are the PI inputs needed for all of this. This particular factory setup, when I drop 50,000 of each unit, so in this case, oxygen, and biomass, 50,000 of each one, those factories will take 2 solid weeks to process all 4 of them, to process all that material, and it'll put out about 6,250 of those units. So 6,250 of each P2 coming off of this. I'm going to set up another character to do this same thing to kick out P2s because I'm not system. Let me see if I can. Nope, I don't have anybody in the system. I do, but he's not the right one. But that will, that just kind of gives you an idea where you can go with factory setups. Let me switch over to my other character. And I will window, that window. There we go. Okay, you should be able to see the bustard sitting there. Can you guys see that?
Affirmative.
Okay, so if I go over to this one, you can see these are all making P5, P4. So if I tap in, the way this one's working is I drop 2 of the P2s on here, rocket fuel and silicate glass, and it's outputting camera drones. Yeah, this one's outputting camera drone. Same thing here on the middle. I drop in polyamerids and genetically enhanced livestock, and it's outputting hermetic membranes. Now, the reason there's none of those in there is because the factories are synced up to the point to where as soon as those land, the P3 to P4 factory immediately picks them up and dumps them out to the launch pad. So each of these launch pads has, so right there, 23, and 23. Yeah, so basically 69 self-harmonizing power cores since yesterday. So in about 20, which really isn't all that bad. And this will run about 3 to 5 days. The thing you have to keep in mind when you start getting into factory setups is you have to factor in the size of the material going in. So a P2 material going in is, where is P1 material is a 0.19 M3. P2 materials are 0.75 M3. P3s are 3 M3 and P4s are 50 M3. So you have to make sure that you have enough space for everything to move around. So on these, I think I put like 6,000 of each P2 in, which leaves me some space. I had some spare material yesterday that I think it's this one on the integrity response drone, where I have, maybe it didn't show it, or maybe it's already eaten them. There. So I had a lot of extra planetary vehicles and something else that I dropped in there. These were hazmat detections. So I actually need to go back and address this because I've got a gap in there right now. Questions? I'm going through a lot, so. No questions?
Only thing I'll make note on is that anytime they upgrade, they get smaller. So
the materials.
Yeah. So as long as you don't slam your storages completely full while there's stuff in the factory itself, you should be fine.
Yeah. Because otherwise, if you don't have any space left in there, what's going to happen is that factory is going to finish, if you've only got 40 M3 left on the launch pad and it tries to put a 50 M3 unit in there, it's going to get dropped and lost. You'll never see it again. That was one of the problems that I had when I first started doing PI, because I took my extractor outputs directly into the factories and couldn't figure out why I was only making 30 when I should have been making 3,000 or something like that. It's because I was losing all of the input material. But those are the basics of getting through the system. If you're going to use templates, now let me switch back to the other window. Go over here and let's change our window. So we should be back to my main. Yep. Okay. So if we're going to use we're going to use a factory setup. In this case, let's just go ahead and we're going to drop something on the first. I don't really care where I'm putting it because I'm putting a factory, so I can just drop it. I'm not worried about the resources on the planet or anything like that. I'm going to go in and I'm going to upgrade. And I'm going to submit that. I think this guy's wallet's getting a little low. No, we're all right. I'll need to transfer some money to him, though, to do the next portion. But I'm going to go to Open Templates, and the templates are all set for. I'm not a fan of how they do it, but let's say I'm doing. Here we go. Mechanical parts, miniature electronics, oxides, microfiber. This may fail because I don't have Command Center 5 on this character. Actually, it will fail, but that's okay. I don't like the fact that it runs all the way over. I like to have, like I said, you don't have to have the Command Center anywhere near the factory or setup or anything. I personally like the aesthetics of having everything together, so I try to bring it together, but you do not have to. So you're going to grab that layout and just drop it in there where you want. You can use the compress pins to notice how it loosens that up a little bit. This is going to come in handy when you're on a planet that has a different diameter. Using that will allow you to change things. Using the horizontal axis A, axis B will allow you to change where everything lines up. So if I switch that, obviously it went off to the side there. Back. Where did it go? It went down. Back to do that. So if I hit confirm and install, this isn't going to let me do it because I don't have Command Center 5. So I've only got. But once you put that in place, it's just a matter of click the button, it drops everything in place, and it automatically sets everything. All of my templates are in that forum post listed on the University PI channel. And then there's also the link for, let's allow it real quick and go back here. So the PI templates under development post, and then my 4X P1 to P2, that has the template layouts for every P2 planet. So if you want to do the same thing that I've got going with every planet making P2s, you can set that up. Do it your own way, whatever. Mix and match as you feel the need. Them's the basics, guys. Into some of the more fancy stuff. Any questions?
You can actually go and just edit the text file for the templates to change the resources.
Yes. I just haven't spent any time doing it.
Yeah. I messed around with it a little bit to make them like they're perfectly aligned down to the last fucking possible.
Yeah,
I have all all
I
on
haven't.
exactly this latitude and this longitude, so they're all
Which?
perfectly spaced down to the
Oh, there
last
you go.
centimeter.
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten that much into the weeds. I'm sure it's coming, but I have not felt the need. But the nice thing about it is that once you really get your extraction planets going and start getting all of your material in, let me pull it up here. Then you start getting, then you start building up your stocks, and that's actually a little low right now. But you start building up your stocks so that you've got stuff to throw into your factory planets and keep things going. I just refilled everything, so I've taken about 3 or 4 billion off the top of everything, getting everything moving. We're moving to market and everything. But that's what I got for you, fellas. I think we covered just about everything. Questions?
Nah, man, you explained everything pretty well.
Saved round.
I've got a handful of questions if nobody else does.
Yeah, go for it.
First off, not directly relating to Pi, but because I haven't used the new ships, how much fight do they have in them now that rats like to spawn on the Pokos?
Those heavy missiles aren't doing a ton of damage. They're good for it'll hold off. They do a little better against the battleships than they do the destroyers and frigates and stuff. But if you are setting things up properly and getting prepared before you go out there, so here I'll show you. Typically, what I'll do is you're never there long enough to make a difference. So if I'm going to a factory planet to set things up, first thing I'm going to do, I've undocked, turned on my shields, I choose my factory planet, right click, and instantly bring up the customs office so that I've got it on screen and ready to go. Then I'll go into my infrastructure hold, and the way I do things is I've got, like I showed you on those factory planets, I've got things set up to where it goes to the launch pads first. Then I have to move everything over to the storage facilities.
I'm tired of shitty ass headsets, man.
Pad. So what you're going to find, so right here, I've got 54,000 M3 of storage space on the Squall, but the customs office can only hold 35,000. So this is where you're really going to have to start playing Tetris and math to get things onto the pads quick so that you don't have any problem. But once I've got that up there, I'm going to right click, go to 0 on the Skyhook.
You can also push that warp to button.
Yep.
On the PI thing, it'll drop you right on the Skyhook.
Yep, exactly. And then I'll have my first pieces of what I'm going to drop in lined up, so that all I've got to do is grab and go. I can see here there's no NP. Oh yeah, there's the NPCs. They just warped in. So I would grab everything, drop it in, and immediately turn around, warp off. Might engage my 1 round on my my MWD or whatever. But now that I've got that first round on my Poco or on my customs office, now I can start moving it to whichever launch pad, and then from the launch pad into the storage facility. And then I'm going to warp back out. So I'll have to do that twice to get everything out. It can be a pain unless you're running lower levels of materials.
Yeah, so I'll just add something. Like, I was really, I guess, nervous or apprehensive of the new rats on the Skyhooks.
Mm-hmm.
I've set up PI on 3 accounts, and I haven't had an issue.
Right.
I'll get a little bit of an issue because you can set it up with where you are right now outside, right? And then what you just showed us is the safe way to do things. So you're not in system, or you forget, oh, I'm on a Poco for an hour.
Right.
And the rats either got me, or people coming into system got me.
Right.
So warping in and out, back and forth is good practice for stuff. So
yeah, I'm paranoid by nature. I don't like to sit in one spot. And even though I might be able to tank the rats and everything else, I just don't like sitting there. There's too much that could go wrong. I'm paying attention to the rats, and somebody else comes into system, and oh shit, I just found myself stuck.
Yeah, like I sat in like a Poco for maybe 10 minutes, and I was like 80% shield, and that's with the rats coming out later, and they shot at me.
Yeah, I mean, the squall and the torrent and all that, the deluge, they're all going to handle it fairly well. The epithal will probably get beat up fairly quickly, so you definitely want to be able to run in, drop, and get out. But the upwells will handle it pretty.
For some reason, my camera is creating static.
Back, then you'll be fine.
Oh fuck.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't like the idea of taking a deep space transport to go get shot by rats. I wasn't sure if the deluge could take a hit or not.
Yeah. I like the torrent just because it's if you've got Upwell 5, you've got 90,000 M3 of space, so I can fit everything for that factory planet into one ship, and then I'm just making relay trips back and forth to drop it all off. It'll tank it just fine. I just don't like sitting there taking it and risking not paying attention. Like I can see here, somebody came into system. So we're going to...
There they are. They're a shuttle.
Shuttle. So... Drop that in there. That way they at least know what's going through. But this particular system, 07 TAC VJ5, is the one of the factory planet systems. It's actually fairly close to 6 TAC I, where we have our home and everything. And this system is very quiet, very, very quiet. There's almost never any ratting here. There's a little bit right now, but there's almost nothing ever here. If you're using Rift, I'll go through and I'll set the background to show a heat map of NPCs killed in a region or in an area. And the redder that gets, the higher I know that the ESS is going to be, which means it's going to be a heavily targeted and trafficked system for people looking to rob ESSs. This particular system is usually gray. There's almost never anybody ratting over here, so you're usually pretty safe running around and doing your PI and stuff. And you've got five or six planets that are all 1% for doing your PI. Any other questions?
I know you briefly touched on this, and there's also numerous forum posts on this. But if we're looking to make primarily P2 components, what are your thoughts on going P0 to P2 on the same planet compared to taking it to a factory planet?
It's possible. It's not recommended because you're always going to be fighting for balance. Because remember, as you're extracting that P0 to P1, or the P0s to make P1, depending on how congested the planet is with other people. Remember, I showed you how to go in here and if we double click, go back out, right click, and show other people's factories or other people's setups. Here's one. Is this the one we had a bunch of? There's a couple there. Another few right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If this is in a place where you've got extractor planets, nobody's doing factory stuff there. If it's all extraction, especially on lava and plasma planets and all of that, if you're trying to go from P0 to P2 on planet, number one, you're fighting for resources because everybody else is going after the same resources. Number two, one resource, you might have your extractor further out, so you're using more power to get there, but you're bringing them on at uneven level. So one might bring on 30,000, but the other one only brings on 15,000. And now you're having to juggle how many extractors each one's using to try to even that out. It's just a constant battle. It's much, much easier and much, much more consistent to have two separate extraction planets getting that P2 material or P0 to P1 material and then dropping it into a P2 factory. That way, you've got consistent output the entire time, and you're maximizing how much material you've got going through. Because then you can drop 50,000 of each unit into a storage facility and launch pad and just let the factories chew on it. And depending on how many you've got in place, they can probably do it pretty damn quick if you're only doing straight to P2.
Okay, so you'd have 2 planets going P0 to P1, and then 1 planet having both P1s to P2.
P1 to P2, yeah. And I mean, you saw the factory planet setups that I've got, where I've got 4 different P1 to P2 setups on the same planet. So it's not optimized. It's giving me a little bit of everything, but it allows me to diversify what I'm making. So I'm making 5 different P1 or P4s at any given point. It's just a matter of building up the stockpiles to throw it in there.
Okay, got it. A lot of the information I was reading was like your choices are P0 to P2 or P1 to P3. Like it didn't really cover the middle ground, but I think that might have been out of date too.
Yeah, your best bet is P0 to P1, just straight extractor planets. And then from there, if you want to go to P1 to P4, P1 to P3, P2 to P4, whatever, find what works for you.
Okay.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, it all comes down to how much effort you want to put into the system. If you want it as easy as possible, you might have just nothing but extractor planets, and then you're making P2s. If you are making just robotics or just fuel components, then you're doing P1. You'll have P1 to P2 planets, and then you'll also have a P1 to P3 planet, so that you can get the robotic. There's ways to do it. So,
okay.
like I said,
that's kind of the direction I was going, was fuel blocks.
Yep, fuel blocks. Fuel blocks. There's good money in that. Like I said earlier, when we were in Delve, I focused solely on robotic, and that's all I made. And I made anywhere from 1.5 to 2 billion a week doing it. Now, of course, I spent 1.5 to 2 billion a week on other things and getting into doctrine and everything else, but it was fun doing it. I had a steady cash flow. Now I'm going down the rabbit hole of reactions. Okay. Other questions?
I guess it just has to do with like the market.
Yep.
So right now you mentioned that like you did fuel blocks. It would just be a question of like, what are the needs? You mentioned GSOL, and you
So
can.
there is a sell to GSOL forum thread. I don't know if they've updated it recently, but there is also another thing that they've recently started doing, which is they've moved over to there's another Alpha Alt Corp. It is called Goonswarm Trading. Hold on a second, I'll tell you.
It's on the forum, so you can find information about that. But yeah.
Yeah, and what that is you would basically move that material over and look to see what corp projects the alliance has put up for you to drop. Literally, you don't have to create a contract for it anymore. You just drop it into the project folder and you get instantly paid. It really comes down to how much market trading do you want to do, or do you want to make it easy and just go straight to the alliance? I logged mine in yesterday, and the only corp project that they had set up for it was for liquid ozone. They didn't have anything for any P4 materials or anything like that, so I put them on the open market.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see.
And if you're making P4s and stuff, like that stuff will sell in ULX.
It'll absolutely sell. But if you're into industry, that P4 materials is used for building structures, building capitals, building crab beacons, all of that stuff. So if you're into industry, building those P4s for yourself, you can stack those up pretty quick, and then all you've got to do is the mining and stuff to get your other material, because those add up fast. All right, fellas, that's what I had for you. Hopefully that answers most of your questions. I'm always available if you have any more questions. Don't hesitate to reach out in game or in here or wherever.
Did you go over purely factory methods?
Go over what?
Like just factory methods where you buy PI and convert?
I did not. I didn't go through any of that. I mean, there are ways to do it, buying off the market and dropping into your factory, stuff like that. That's more of the market trading side that I don't get into very much. Just usually because I don't have the money to do it. But yeah, there's people that'll buy P1, P2 off the market, and then they'll just drop that into the factories and make their own P3, P4s, whatever.
Yeah, I was one of them when there's 66 planets like that.
Yep. I'm running, let's see, after setting that particular planet up, I'm at 70 planets. So, but they're not all extraction. It's a form of madness.
So yeah, I guess I got another quick question.
Sure.
So I know like Zero, the some of the systems have the 1% tax,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to build on those. Those systems aren't the greatest for PI for like P1 to pull.
So
Or
every planet in the Imperium should have the first barren planet in the system set as 1%. That way you can do some factory in the system. But there are specific systems where there are multiple barren planets, and those are designated as the Factory Alliance PI system. And those are going to have, 4 or 5 planets that are all 1%. So you can do the majority of your stuff. Every other planet should be, I believe, at 5%. There are some of them that are still at 10%, just because managing planets like that is a pain in the ass through the interface going in and getting to all of them. So they have to do each one individually. But the first barren planet in every system should be the factory, and then in the University PI channel, that very first link there for the forum post is the Alliance PI factory system thread, which will show you where the systems are, and each one will have probably 4 or 5 barren planets that are all at 1%.
Right. So I guess my question more has to do with, will I get in trouble because I have so many
for
guys?
extracting off of there?
Yeah.
No, you won't. You won't. Okay. It's just meant for. I mean, if you need if you let's say you have extraction planets 3 systems out, you're extracting to there and you're bringing to the PI system, and you've got one particular thing that needs. I know there's one P4, a couple of P4s that need P1 material added in with them. It takes 2 P3s and a P1. There's nothing wrong with pulling it off the same planet, setting up an extractor if you wanted. It's not really the most optimal way, but you could do it.
All right. Okay.
What else we got?
You mentioned you preferred using the torrent over the deluge most of the time?
I do, yeah, but that's just because the 90,000 M3 storage space when you're at Upwell 5. Or if I'm eventually I'm going to have all of my harvesting characters into those, just so that when I go around harvesting every 2 weeks, I can get more material in and then move that over to the station for the jump freighters to move it around. On a really good harvest run, I've got 12 characters. 12 characters dumping P1 materials into a station, and I can run anywhere from 1 to 2 full jump freighter loads of just P1 materials over to the factory system. So a couple billion in P1 materials. So I like to be able to to maximize what I'm moving around. If I'm in an epithal, which some characters are still in epithals, I might have to make 2 trips, 2 systems over to get the rest of the material that I had to leave behind because I didn't have any space.
So it's just purely for space reasons?
It's just purely for space reasons. Now, I do believe, let's take a look here. So the epithal, if we simulate that, epithal max warp speed, 3 AU a second, and it's got a 10-second align time. If I look at the squall, 4.5 AU, so it warps faster, but it doesn't align as quick. The torrent, 3.3 with an even longer align time, but it's a little more tankier. And then the deluge, which is the blockade runner, 6.3. So it's hopping, but it doesn't have as much storage space, and it aligns a lot faster. So it really depends on how much material you're moving, what you're comfortable with, and everything. And you might even change the fit around. I like the torrent because it's definitely a tankier fit. It's got better resistances all the way around. So if I'm sitting at the skyhook loading stuff, I can tank that out a lot better and still be throwing some missiles back at them. I put a cloak on there, but that slows down your targeting. So I might take that off there, but there's ways to play with it.
If you fit the deluge for like max align time, you can get it down to about 3.7 seconds.
Right. Yeah, blockade runners are damn fast.
Yeah, it's just about instant warp.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm using a prowler for it now.
Yeah, so some of my characters can't fly the deluge yet, so they're in
and the squall works. The squall
prorator
works just as well. Yeah.
And when I collect all my stuff on them, I just bounce from the fort to the planet, the fort to the planet, the fort to the planet.
Yep.
Like it might take a little bit longer, but I try and be on grid at a skyhook for less than 10 seconds if I can.
Yeah. And that's typically the way I do it. I don't like spending a lot of time, especially if if somebody in the system has just been wonking around and you get out there and suddenly you find that they've gone in and destroyed all of the battleships on the skyhook, and now there is a dreadnought sitting there. You warp in and you're not going to be there very long. I've had that happen a time or two where I've warped in and there's been an Angel dreadnought sitting there.
Yeah. So you can, for if you're going to be basing out of Six Tac Eye, you can get every single P1 material within 2 jumps of Six Tac Eye.
Right. Yeah, all of my stuff is set up over near JTAC-Q just because that's where I was when we first moved over here.
Yeah.
And I left that corp, but I'm like, you know what? I've got everything over here. I'm not tearing down my PI again. I've got it set up nicely. Because anytime you get all that set up and you go to course correct, move it around or whatever, it can take a lot of time to get that set up. So I try to tear that down as little as possible. All right, fellas, that's where we're at.
All right. Thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, man, I appreciate it. That was a lot of information for sure.
Welcome to the fire hose. All right, streaming stopped, and then Hot Fry, you can go ahead and stop the recording and then share that out when you've got it ready. That way everybody's got it.
Alrighty.
Much appreciated on that.
Not a problem, man.
All right. Since we're not recording anymore,